Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, Three-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. Hey everyone, we are back on the Reticle Up podcast with Paul Cunningham. He is the founder of Notch Gear, and not just by himself, but with his wife Terra as well. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing good, Kenzie. How are you?
Doing great. It's great everything that you do for the community, by the way, kicking this off. If you don't know about Notch Gear, I haven't been to a match where someone's not wearing your hat or it's not on a prize table or a giveaway swag bag.
Nice. We love that. Yeah, we've been fortunate to have a lot of competitive shooters sort of latch on to our product, which has been fun. And then we get requests almost on a daily basis from different matches around the country for donations and stuff. So we try to say yes as much as we can.
It's awesome. I saw the AMU wears it. The Marine Corps team has them on. I'm like, yes,
Yes.
a win.
Yeah. That's real. I mean, of course, being a Marine, the Marine Corps team is near and dear to my heart. So we're very honored that they would wear that. And yeah, the USAMU hats have turned out really good. We're happy with those.
They look awesome. So yeah, diving right in. I actually want to know, because I don't really know the full story. How did you and your wife, Terra, start Notch Gear?
So we've been married for 27 years. We just had our 27th anniversary in March.
Oh, congrats.
And thank you. And I had always wanted to have a patent, like invent something and take a product to market. I'm not sure why I wanted to do that. I just thought it would be cool. And so I have a book on my bookshelf at home that Terra, being the supportive wife she is, bought me way back when we first got married, called the Inventor's Desktop Companion. And it was like, just like a guide on what to do. Because like a lot of people, I had ideas, but I didn't do anything with them, and
Got to
she
put them
got me
down
like
on
a
paper.
journal. Yes, yeah, she got me like a journal to like journal them and stuff, and she was super supportive. And so I would talk about the ideas, but I didn't really, follow through with action. And about 10 years ago, I guess, no, sorry, 11 years ago, um, I before that I was wearing baseball caps a lot, and I like to wear a curved brim. I can't pull off a flat bill even if I wanted to.
Neither can I.
And yeah, and I've been a lifelong Oakley customer, so at the time I was wearing Oakley fuel cells a lot.
Okay.
And my hat and my sunglasses kept interfering with each other. So I would wear my hat backwards, or I would just pick between, okay, today I'll wear a hat or today I'll wear sunglasses, because it just wasn't comfortable to wear the hat forward. So one Sunday I was sitting on the couch watching golf, and I saw a golfer with his hat cocked back because it was hitting his glasses. And it just sort of hit me like, why didn't someone notch out the bill? So I jumped off the couch and I got a pair of scissors and I grabbed my Titleist golf hat and I made my first prototype, and I was like, holy cow, that works. So
Wow.
Terra and I started just scouring the internet to see if something was out there, because I sort of like, man, I'm a pretty normal guy. I like this product. It works for me. It's got to work for other people.
Right.
And we searched and searched and didn't find anything. And then, not to go into the whole story, but
that's why we're here. We got to know.
Okay. Yeah. Found a patent attorney, did a patent search. And I thought for sure he would come back and say, no, someone's already done that.
Right.
But he came back and said it's novel and patentable. And so we filed our emergency application right away. But what was interesting was when he sent us the results of the patent search, he sent us about a dozen existing patents that had tried to solve the same problem. And yeah, so, we weren't the only ones that had an idea about it. Right. Everybody else just took a different approach. So, but what was interesting is they were all sort of an awkward pairing of glasses that were just made for a hat. So you've seen those that like clip onto the underbill and they fold up and down.
Yep.
Or there's one where there's a slit between the bill and the crown, and the glasses are built into the hat and they slide up and down through the bill.
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, it's called T-cap. I think they're still around. But the inherent weakness with all of those is it didn't allow the user to wear the glasses they already have.
Right.
And the beauty of our patent is that we just took the simplest approach possible, and which no one had taken, and we said, let's just take space out of the bill to make room for them.
Brilliant. That was
Which
an
to me, like,
expensive prototype, by the way, a Titleist hat. That's
yes,
so
yeah,
cheap.
yeah, we still have it. Yeah, we still
Oh,
have it
that's neat.
somewhere. I got it's probably dusty somewhere, but and so yeah, so we thought, this will allow people to wear the glasses they already have, and it kind of looks cool. And so we experiment with a lot of different shapes, sizes, just trying to make sure that we could not only make a space that accommodated eyewear, but also had a secondary function of keeping their eyewear in place
Mhm.
and being a beautiful design. So we worked hard at that, and had to learn about the whole prototyping thing, and actually started out just wanting to license the idea. So
Hmm.
we didn't necessarily set out to be a manufacturer. We pitched the idea to all kinds of, New Era, Oakley, Under Armour,
Oh, wow.
a lot of the big companies that make a lot of hats,
Right.
and FlexFit. Had some interest from FlexFit, but ultimately we kept getting no's from everybody.
Look at that
So
now.
right, yeah. So I think we got our last no from Under Armour in like the fall of 2011, and by this time I was like hand sewing prototypes and wearing them around because it was useful for me. It's functional.
Right.
And people would stop me and be like, where did you get that hat? Where can I get one of those? And I was like, okay, we probably have something here,
Mm-hmm.
but we just didn't know how much. So when Under Armour said no, we said, okay, we're gonna we're gonna find a manufacturer. We're gonna take the product to market and just try to prove concept, which is what we did. So then we had to, you know, figure that out because I didn't have a manufacturing background. I did have a quality control background for a company that did automotive parts. So I had a little bit of manufacturing knowledge, but just enough to be dangerous, really.
But not like business. Nobody taught you how to do all of these steps like patenting and
No,
any of that. Wow.
no, no, none of it. We learned it. We're still learning it all as we go.
Yeah.
Because so for the last 21 years, I've sold real estate. Residential real estate has been my career. And I've sort of been doing that in tandem with Notch as we grow.
So
Um,
neat.
yeah, so we just had to learn, and we made a lot of mistakes, and
Sure.
made some progress, and sort of have um, it's been a fun journey learning. I love that process of developing stuff and learning, and the fact that somebody bought the hats and continues to buy them is just icing on the cake, because most patents aren't profitable.
Right. Right. I see a lot of patents that come up, I guess, in colleges where they have them, but they want like students to iterate them or design them, but they don't necessarily build them ever.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I think there's a lot around that as well, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure that there are spin-offs from those things that become useful technology or whatever.
Right. So this was almost like a side hustle while
Yes.
still working.
Yes.
You think it'll ever be full time or just always continue to dabble and work, both
Yeah.
industries?
I think it's going that direction. I think as we really made some big strides in the last year to 18 months. And so yeah, I see it going that direction. And it's funny, when I had the idea, I was thinking, oh, like in a year, we'll be huge.
Mhm.
And I had to learn a lot about managing expectations. And so it's a sort of cliche. We started it out of our garage, just Terra and I, and we were doing everything. We were sewing the hats and,
I love it.
shipping them and doing all those things. And we have a long way to go, but we're a lot further along than where we started. So
Yeah, and what's interesting? A lot of people don't see that compound effect of time
mhm,
dedicated over the years, right? They just see Notch Gear as
right.
it is now, but they have
Hmm.
no clue that what 12, 11 years have been put into this.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
still not
Yeah.
where, you expect, but it's growing.
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah. A
like
lot of good things happen.
yeah, what was like the tipping point, I guess, where it just really ramped up?
Um, I think probably when that's hard to say. I mean, I feel like we're still waiting for a tipping point. And by
Okay.
my standards, I think we're not there yet. Like, we're definitely bigger, a lot bigger than much, much bigger than we were when we started.
Mhm.
But I have pretty high expectations for the brand, so I feel like that's still coming. But I will tell you that, when COVID hit last year in the spring, nobody really knew what to expect. It sort of caught everybody by surprise. So we sent all of our team members home to work from home, and paid them to work from home, and weren't quite sure what this would bring, and we're sort of bracing for the worst.
Yeah.
And then we went on to have the best month we'd ever had in the history. Besides, we went on Fox and Friends a few years ago, and that was a spectacular month.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
yeah, but besides that, it was our highest grossing month ever. So as quickly as we could, we brought everybody back, and it really hasn't slowed down since. So,
Awesome.
but like you said, it's like those. I'm actually reading that book, Tipping Point, right now.
Yep.
And it's all these little things that sort of just build the momentum to the point where then everything spills over. But you always hear about, it's easy to look at other brands that started around the same time that you did. And, some of them aren't around anymore, and some of them are way bigger.
Right.
So it's really interesting. Like you have to try not to compare, because we don't know their backstory. We don't have investors. It's just Terra and I, and we've, sort of done all this, just the two of us. And we've been fortunate to be able to do that. But it's hard not to compare yourself to those other brands. But you look at from the outside looking in, you think, wow, that's really impressive. But we are where we are, and I don't know that I want to explode really per se. We've been sort of the old-fashioned, slow and steady, building a grassroots following with our customers, providing a great innovative product and world-class customer service. Like those are the things that we focus on.
Yep.
And we know like the results will come if you do it enough.
Absolutely. And that's kind of rare in our industry. I won't bash other companies at all, but the communication and the customer service
Yes.
is the differentiating factor, I think, in a lot of products.
Yes, yeah, because I mean, our thing is like, I'm a consumer, and I know how I want to be treated, and so we work hard to provide that for every customer. We have an amazing team here that does a really good job at doing that for us and with us.
I want to talk a little bit about the design, actually. So what makes this notch like so special? I don't know, for people watching, not listening to the podcast, but this is the notch, and comes with patches, which I have a whole patch wall.
Yeah.
So unique. So what makes it so special?
So what makes it the most special is if someone likes to wear a curb brim hat and they're tired of their hat pushing their glasses down onto their nose, those little notches there, it's less than 1.5 inches square inches of space that we took away, but it allows them to pull that hat down over their glasses, and they don't have that discomfort anymore. They're sort of, it's like they're made for each other. And so nobody else out there has anything like it. It's almost embarrassing how simple it is, but it's super effective, so that's the main thing. Second thing I think would be our quality. We really focus hard on delivering the highest possible quality product we can. Every hat that goes out gets fussed over. So when we ship our orders every day, part of our standard issue equipment is we have tweezers and scissors and lint rollers. Wow. And every hat gets fussed over before we send it out.
I didn't
because
know
that's
that.
how we would. Yes, that's how we would want to receive it when we get it.
Right.
Even our large wholesale orders, we do the same thing. So
wow.
We are really fanatical about quality. We've got a big stacks of boxes of hats that maybe they came from the manufacturer with a minor blemish or a thread that had popped out. For the most part, we don't, we just keep those and we write them off. We don't want to send those out.
Wow.
So yeah, we're pretty picky.
That's awesome. I want to talk about this material too, real quick before you share. It's probably not what you're supposed to do, but I sweat a lot.
Yeah.
I wash my hats every single week that I get back from a match, and I hang them up to dry at least, but I've had this for probably a year, 2 years. Gosh, I don't even know how long. Not a seam out of touch, and everything is still perfect the way it was.
Yes. Yeah, that's our athlete operator Navy Gold. So that particular one we actually have discontinued. But we have 3 other variations of it, and I don't, as far as I can tell, I haven't seen it in the marketplace, but it's a performance operator. There's lots of operators out there, but this is made specifically for shooters out there on the course or at the range. And we actually, the first one we made was black with red stitching, and we co-designed it with Jana Reeves. So I don't know if you know
Oh,
who she
yes.
is, or
I wish she was still shooting.
yeah,
She was actually inspirational to me getting started. I've never met her, but I know who she is.
really. She's super nice. She's super nice, and she was kind enough. We didn't know, and we didn't know her, and she just ordered some hats from our site, and at the time had a very large following and was posting and tagging us, and we were so grateful. And so we co-designed that hat with her, and it did really well. So we've introduced other color options along the way,
I love
but
it.
it's a really lightweight, breathable fabric, and it's super color fast. So like you said, you can throw it in the machine and it's virtually not going to fade.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I definitely put my hats through the ringer.
Yep, yep, yep. And you're not alone. Everybody sweats in their hats, so whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah, right. So you're talking a little bit about that reward of like having people come up to you and talk about where they can get that hat. What is
Mhm.
that feeling when someone like makes a purchase that's a complete stranger, like you said, like for all of that work put in, what does that feel like as an entrepreneur?
It's deeply gratifying. It's deeply gratifying because, you know, we had invested a lot of time and money before we ever sold a single hat. And I'm sort of a low risk person by nature. I don't even really consider myself an entrepreneur at heart. I mean, I like to work hard, and I like to, you know what I mean? Well, I don't know. It's like a term that people throw around a lot
Yeah,
today.
that's true. That's true.
I'm just a guy that had an idea, and I like to work hard, and I want to make the idea happen,
We'll
is
just
what I
call
would call
Terra the
myself.
entrepreneur. No, I'm just kidding.
Sarah is the entrepreneur. That's right. Yeah. But so it's really gratifying because we had invested all this time and money and hadn't sold a single hat. And it's kind of scary because like, wow, what if I'm the only one that likes this?
Right.
So when we started, we had 5 styles, and they were all pretty generic, just sort of classic designs. Um, None of them were operators.
Mm.
And we started selling hats right away, and we had some stores locally that were kind enough to carry them, and they
Cool.
still 8 years later are selling them and restocking all the time.
That's amazing.
um, and yeah, right away we started getting emails, when are you going to make an operator version? Because in my mind, I thought we would sort of make inroads in the golf market first, which
Okay.
is, I had the idea of watching golf, and that's what I specifically had it in mind for. But just sort of organically, it works great with shooting glasses, and just organically, that market has really embraced the product in a big way.
So you
So we
never
made our
planned for that market, like at all.
no, no, not at all. It
Wow.
was totally unexpected. Yeah. And in hindsight, that probably would have been, made more sense to focus there first, but we, didn't have a crystal ball. So we made our first operator, which was a tan operator, and it was a pretty terrible version of it, but we still sold the tar out of them. And we're
Wow.
like, okay, we better make more of these. So we made more, and I think we added the black operator next, just adjustable styles, and then started to build from there. And now we have like 30 plus operator styles and 60 something styles, overall.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
I was gonna say, do you want to touch on too, the ponytail hats for women?
yes, yes. Yeah, so we started getting requests for that, and I'd love to take credit for that, but that's actually an old patent. So
Really?
that was a patent, yes. So a lot of people may not know, but when you get a utility patent, they last 21 years, but then after that point, then it's public domain.
Hmm.
So we still have quite a few years left with our patent before it's public, so it still belongs to us. But that ponytail slot there was patented, and I believe it expired in the early part of this, like the early 2000s. So
Okay.
it's public domain now. And there's different versions of the ponytail, but we thought that one was the most understated and subtle, and consistent with our design.
Yeah.
So we we introduced it because of, so that's another thing that I'm glad you touched on that. We get lots of requests, like really almost daily, like, hey, can you make this hat? Can you make that hat? And we want to make them all, but you
Right.
also have to be careful and make sure that you're making something that enough people will want to buy.
Especially
Um,
retail and sizing. I
yes,
mean, all that's so important. You have stock, you have to sell that inventory.
it is. It is. And so we started getting a lot of requests for ponytail hats, and um, the it was kind of a no-brainer. So we made just some generic. We actually bought some generic blanks from another brand and rebranded them as our own just to test real quick, and they were very well embraced. So we went ahead and made our own branded line with
Nice.
one of our manufacturers, and they're doing great.
You just dove straight in.
Yes, yeah, yeah. One of the few times where, like, usually I'm the holdup when it comes
Mm.
to like new products and getting, moving the ball down the field for new styles. Just because there's only so many hours in a day, and sometimes product development and the development cycle takes a back seat.
Mhm.
But this one we jumped right on it, and really Terra was the big driver on that, and it was a great idea.
I mean, your ponytail, it doesn't tell you that you need you need a hat.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing what it's behind. You can't see it because of no, never had one. I don't think I don't have enough. I have less hair every day, so I don't know if I have enough for one.
Oh, that's funny. My dad tells me that his gray hair is because of me. I'd like to change that.
That's right. That's right.
Uh, well, okay, so you having all this experience, if someone listening out there is wanting to develop, say, a retail product, what would
Mhm.
be like the best piece of advice or a couple of pieces of advice that would help them kind of, cut the learning curve down?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing would be passion isn't enough. Passion is definitely not enough. You need to make sure that there's at least a reasonable expectation that there's going to be demand for your product. Um, so I read a book a long time ago. It was when I was a kid, I think, and it was about Thomas Edison. And he, obviously invented tons of things, but a lot of the stuff he invented, there just wasn't a use for.
Mhm.
And there was like one particular story about that, and it just taught me a lesson about like if you're going to make something, you want to make something that people need or would want. So do do some due diligence, do market research, get a small focus group of people that you don't know that won't tell you what you want to hear,
Yep.
and pay them each $25 or $50 for their time, and get feedback, and try to predict if there's a product market fit for what you're wanting to make. And even if a small percentage of them have an affinity for the product, then that's your sort of validation that you might be moving in the right direction. That's the big thing, because a lot of people, whether it's a restaurant or whatever, they might start something they're passionate about, and that's good, and it's a necessary component, but it's definitely not enough. You got
Right.
to make sure there's going to be demand.
Do you think that like the 80-20% rule really comes into effect when it comes like notch gear? Do you have like a really loyal, like 20%, and then it still grows a little bit in the 80, but
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a small group that, and it's growing, of customers that have 5, 10, 30 notch hats, which is just like, again, super gratifying that people like, because they work hard for their money,
yeah.
and the fact that they would spend their hard-earned money on your product is pretty humbling. But so yeah, I think so. There's that core. They're like the diehard, and it's weird because you like don't even know what to do with it, because it's almost like they love it more than we do,
Right.
So it's interesting. But and then there's those people that are just sort of testing us out and not quite sure about us, and they'll buy one and test it out, and
Yeah.
for a lot of people it works. For some people it doesn't, and that's okay. There's no product out there that's for everybody. you
Right.
know some people are diehard iPhone people, and some people are diehard Samsung people, and so not even a product as ubiquitous as an iPhone is for everybody.
Right. Right. And you would think, oh, it's just a hat. I'm here to tell you it's a game changer though.
Yep. Yep.
And I
Thank you.
and I have to have every color because it has to match the outfit and the patches.
Right.
It's the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, exactly. You need one for every day of the week, or maybe every day of the month.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every match.
There
Um,
you go.
so tell me a little bit about the Children's Hunger Fund. I know you do a lot with them. Do you want to share
Mhm.
what Notch Gear does working with them?
I'd love to. That'd be great. I'm glad you asked that. So part of my life, and well, part of Tara and I's marriage since we were even before we were married, we've always enjoyed giving and helping people. It's just part of what we do, and it's been a part of our DNA, and it gives us a lot of joy. And so, we wanted to be able to to start from the very beginning with Notch and making it more than just selling a product, but also have the ability to have a product that people want, that you can sell to them, and then take part of that and do some good. And so there's so much need out there. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much need there is. And we chose hunger as what we wanted to support, because every day about 20,000 kids die of preventable disease and hunger, which is a crazy number. It's hard to wrap your mind around that. And so we thought, for me, it's like triage. It's like, let's meet the most urgent need first if we can, and even if we can make a small dent.
Right.
So from the very beginning, we drew inspiration from some other brands. There's a lot of brands that do social entrepreneurship and do good, and that's great. And we said, this will give us, hopefully in the long term, the ability to make a difference on a greater scale than we could on our own, just the two of us.
Right.
So started with the very first hat we sold, and we found Children's Hunger Fund through, I was actually reading a book at the time by a guy that referenced them in his book. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'll look at them. And they're like rock stars in the charity world. So for every $100 you give, $99 goes straight to the need, which is pretty
That's
unbelievable.
unheard of, almost.
Yeah. So because, there's lots of charities out there where the numbers are horrible. It's like very, very small part of it goes to the end user. So rather than tackle a whole nother monster and make our own 501c3 nonprofit, we thought, let's partner with someone who's already doing a fantastic job. So we partnered with them, and at the time when we started out, it was every hat provided 5 meals. And it wasn't a meal in the sense that you and I think about, we're going to sit down and eat lunch. It was more like an emergency nutrition pack sort of a thing for someone who was who was not, maybe dying soon if they didn't get nutrition, basically.
Right.
So we started out, kind of slow, but making our quarterly donations with them, and it's just grown. We restructured it recently, about a year ago. Now every hat provides 1 meal. Still the same amount, dollar amount per hat that we're giving them. It's just a different structure, and it's a more substantial meal.
Nice.
Yeah, but to date we've provided, I think it's about 560,000 meals that we've provided since we launched. Yeah, so we're pretty proud of that. Yeah, and what's cool about them is they don't really take credit for all the stuff they do. They empower the local church, and so wherever they're delivering food or aid, sometimes it's medical, like medicine. In our case, it's food, but wherever they deliver it, whether it's Guatemala or Sierra Leone or wherever they might be, or even in the U.S., they don't deliver the food directly to the people that need it. They give it to the local church, and the local church delivers it, which I think is a cool model.
That is neat.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. So and we've developed a neat relationship with them, and very happy that they let us come on board.
I have to ask, have you visited any of these places and seen your impact at all?
We haven't. So we have gone on mission trips before, my wife and I and our kids, to the Dominican. And so we've been in situations where it's starkly different than anything we had ever seen or grown up around. So, but we haven't, it's one of our goals is to make a trip with CHF and make that connection even further. We have made a trip out. They're headquartered out of Sylmar, California.
Okay.
So we have made a trip out and packed some boxes with them and got to shake their hand and meet them and stuff. And so that was fun. But we really want to get that on our, like, in the next year or two, make a partner trip with them.
That's amazing. A lot of people don't know when they hear the word social entrepreneurship, and hopefully you can define it too, they always think nonprofit. Like you said, we have to create a 501c3, but hey, that's not the case. There are a lot of companies out there, like you said, that are doing good with a for-profit business. And partnering is one of those, impactful things So I don't know if you want to share anything else on that, if you build a company, how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a one particular model that necessarily fits everything, but there's a company called Project 7 and a guy named Tyler Merrick, that's the founder of Project 7, who's been a huge inspiration to us. Awesome guy. And they've gone through some evolution as a company, but they've had products in every Starbucks in the country, every Target in the country, every Walmart in the country, often on different products that they've done. And they're really now getting a lot more into the keto friendly, low carb, low sugar candy, he's doing some incredible innovation around that. But I had found out about them before we started Notch. So I'm not afraid to talk to new people and just make a call and talk to someone I've never talked to before. So
A hard skill.
yeah. So when I called him, I just cold called him and said, hey, this was like 9 years ago. Like, hey, we're starting this company. Really, it's awesome. We think it's awesome what you're doing. How do you structure it? Like, how do we know how much we could give and stay open and
Right.
be profitable and grow so that we can do more and more of it? And he said the same thing. He's like, there's really not, like, I can't give you a number because every product's different. Your margins, that's part of the equation.
Right.
But so I guess that what I would say is it is possible. And the reason I like that model is, when you have kids, like you have to do a lot of fundraising when they're in sports and stuff. And nobody hates asking people for money more than I do. Like, I didn't like going like, hey, do you want to buy my kids candles or,
Girl Scout cookies.
yeah, exactly. But so the neat thing about this model is you don't have to ask anybody for money. You give them a product that they're excited to buy and they pay you money for it. And then you take part of that and you do something awesome with it.
It's so neat. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Thanks.
I love when entrepreneurs share information, right? Sometimes they're so near and dear to holding on to this information when it can help others. Right. I think that's really amazing that you found someone to do that.
Yeah. And so he's still, we stay in touch, and through the years, he's mentored me a little bit, and I'm really respectful of his time. I mean, I might contact him once or twice a year, if even that.
Wow.
But he's always so responsive and like, man, how can I help? And which is pretty incredible. And so we want to be the same way. Like, there's a lot of people out there that want to help you, but want to charge you lots of money for it.
Yeah.
So, we're big on not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to admit that there's stuff you don't know.
Right.
And then hopefully we'll be able to like help people in some way, like even if it's just that little tip that helps them or whatever.
Right. You already touched on it. You just said, there's always something to learn there. It goes back to asking for help, asking the questions, and not being afraid to say, I don't know. How do I do that?
Right.
A lot of people don't do that. And that's when they stop growing.
For sure.
Really quickly. So I want to switch gears a little bit. You mentioned at the beginning. So tell me a little bit about being in the Marine Corps. I don't know enough about military stuff. So if you want to share like what you did in the military, how long you were in for and all of that.
Yeah, you bet. I graduated high school in 1988. So joined the Marines right out of high school. I'm the youngest of 7, and none of my siblings went in the military. That was from a divorce and remarriage.
Oh gosh.
So
okay.
I always say like we were like the Brady Bunch, just way more dysfunctional. But my dad was in the Air Force in the 50s during the Korean War. He didn't deploy over to Korea, but so he was really the only person in the family. And my uncle was in the Army in World War II. But none of my siblings had ever expressed interest that I know of in being in the military, and I really wasn't interested either. But a good friend of mine one day announced to me that he was going to go talk to the Marine Corps recruiter, and I was like, "What are you doing? Like, I'm going to go with you to make sure you don't get bamboozled by this guy."
What? This is how it
Before I
happens.
knew it, yeah, this is how it happened. I came away like, I want to join the Marines too. So I signed up early when I was 17. I had to get my parents to co-sign for me, and then went through my senior year, went to boot camp, and fortunately I tested pretty good on the ASVAB, which is like the standards, like the SATs for military aptitude. And I was an air traffic controller in the Marine Corps. So went through boot camp in San Diego, and my A school was in NAS Millington, which is just outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
And now it's shared. It's in Florida. They moved it just after I left to Florida.
Nice and warm.
Yes, yeah. And then so I got stationed in Yuma at the Marine Corps Air Station here in '89, and worked in the radar room as an air traffic controller there for a little bit, and then transitioned up to the tower and spent the rest of my 3 years up in the tower.
Very cool.
So yeah, very challenging profession for sure. But it was a
What
good time.
about the boot camp? Like, how challenging was that? Or basic?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Like my siblings and my parents too, my dad and my stepmom were like, they weren't sure about this because I was kind of like the spoiled youngest that didn't really want to do anything for myself, didn't have much work ethic. So I think they were pretty concerned, like he's probably just gonna like bounce out of boot camp.
Right.
And so I went in not really. My recruiter did a really good job of setting expectations. I will say that. He was Staff Sergeant Ryden was
Oh,
my
you remember?
recruiter. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. He was an awesome guy, and he did a really good job of preparing us to the best of his ability, I guess, and setting expectations. But what was weird was, for all the branches, I think we can unarguably say it's the most difficult training. Besides special forces, it's longer, it's more intense, more demanding in just about every way.
Right.
And whether or not my other service members would agree, doesn't really concern me. No, I'm just kidding. But I kept wondering, like, when is this going to get as hard as I thought it was going to be? Like,
Oh,
for whatever reason, I excelled, and I actually was a squad leader and got meritoriously promoted out of boot camp, which was
cool.
interesting because my recruiter, I don't know if it's the same way now, but at the time, if so I've signed up. If I refer two other people to him that sign up, you get an automatic promotion. That's how it was back then.
Really?
So instead of coming out of boot camp as a private, you come out as a private first class, which is not that big of a deal anyway. But
Mhm.
it's one pay grade up.
Sure.
And he was going to give me my second referral so I could just be promoted. He's like, no. He's like, you're going to get meritorious promoted. I know you're going to. I was like, wow, that's cool. So sure enough, I became third squad leader, and I got fired once, and I got back in the position and stayed there the rest of boot camp. But it was very challenging in a lot of ways, but not quite as hard as I was expecting it to be. And I think that's because he did a really good job at preparing me.
It's awesome.
The worst part, far and away, was the swim qualifications.
I was waiting for that. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, swim quals were pretty horrible, but I failed them the first time around, and had to sort of do like the secondary version of it, which was actually harder.
Of
I'm
course.
not sure why,
Of course.
but I made it through. So
I can't even go to California and surf with a wetsuit on and not be cold. So
the Pacific's always cold. We're going to San Diego for a week next month, and it's the water is never warm. So
Florida was a good choice.
Yes, for sure.
Love it. Were there any programs available, like when you were active duty or when you became a veteran, to start a business, like specifically for veterans? Or
So yes, but I wasn't aware of them.
okay.
So the SBC has loans that are tailored for veterans and resources. There's actually I haven't done it for a little while, but up until earlier this year, once a quarter I would go on base here at the Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, and the SBC has a program called Boots to Business, and it's Marines that are getting out of the Marine Corps, transitioning to civilian life, and it's really like almost like an entrepreneurial 101 on what to look for, what to do. And so they were, I would get to go in and talk to the Marines about my experience with Notch.
Neat.
And then they'd have other people with, like, they'd have a financial guy that was like, here's how you do your books and these other things.
Right.
So if they had those resources when I was, just getting out, I wasn't aware of them. But there was so I got out in '92, but then I had a sort of a long journey of other things between that before, it was almost 20 years after I got out that we started Notch. So, and I guess we were really fortunate that my real estate business had done pretty well, so we were able to self-fund the startup.
Which
so
is amazing to not have an investor. Didn't mean to interrupt, but for people
yes,
listening, like, you have no idea what an investor can hold over you or take from you or decide.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. So that was a huge blessing. Like, not not having to rely on anybody, it was still, it was scarier, all the risk is on you.
That's true.
But so we didn't really, honestly, I didn't even think to look for those resources because we were fortunate enough to, not that we just had like money, growing on trees or anything, but we had enough that we could start it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people listening, do you know where they can find some of these programs? One of the ones I'll mention too is Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for veterans with disabilities. So that one's specific there. I used to do the marketing sessions, of course, for that.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So I met
That's
a lot
cool.
of people and I did their marketing for a little bit afterwards, but it's crazy the connections that you can make, active duty, or whether they're veterans, or like you said, you were out 20 years, but even then you're still a veteran that can take advantage of some of these resources.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would check out the SBA for sure. They have resources, because I think I said SBC earlier, but I meant SBA.
SBA, yeah.
So the SBA is the one that actually runs the Boots to Business program. And it's not just, it's nationwide as far as I understand. They've got the program on a lot of bases. So they would probably have some resources for not only that, but just, financing resources for low interest loans, that sort of thing. So I would check out the SBA for sure.
Cool. And that's for, people that just have an idea and people that kind of are just getting started with their business. Do it, you don't have to have it all together.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's you can start with shockingly little, they talk about the MVP, the minimum viable product. You don't have to have it perfect to start. And like you and I were chatting before this started, and I said, action trumps everything. And so it's better to do something imperfectly than nothing perfectly. So you just got to get started.
Absolutely. So for the real estate portion, I haven't asked this yet.
Yeah.
Do you have when you were transitioning out of the military, did you plan to go into real estate? Was that like always the job kind of line up for you, or?
No, no. So after post Marine Corps, I worked a lot of different jobs. I waited tables. I tellered at a bank.
Nice.
I did construction. I did so many different things. Never afraid to get my hands dirty. But I also took advantage of the GI Bill and went to school. So ended up getting my degree. It took me 6 years because I was working mostly full time while I was going to school, because that was pre 9/11. So the pre 9/11 GI Bill was a much smaller entitlement than the current post 9/11 GI Bill, and which is fine. But so I worked a lot of different jobs while I was going through school, and Terra and I were married for most of that time. We married young. And so she would work and I would work, and we went to school. And the plan was I was going to become a dentist, actually.
What? I can't picture this.
So, and Terra was going to become a hygienist, which she actually did. She was successful. It turns out I wasn't smart enough to get into dental school.
Wait, you got rejected?
Yes, many times.
Crazy. For people listening, think about where you're at now. Rejection is honestly a good thing sometimes, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I'm so thankful I didn't make it in dental school, because in retrospect, I would not have been happy as a dentist.
Right.
And that's no disrespect to dentists. I mean, there's some that are amazing, and I'm sure they're very fulfilled, but
yeah,
I don't think I could have been tied to a chair all day, because I like to be doing different things. So so after like 2 years of applying for dental school and getting rejected, I flew to 4 interviews. The closest I got an alternate spot at Oregon Health Sciences University, but never got a call. So by this time I'm like almost 30, and we haven't had kids yet, but we're, those are on the horizon. And I'm like, okay, I have to find a career. And in a very short period of time, 3 different people, none of whom knew each other. It was like a 4-day period. It was really weird. They were like, hey, have you thought about real estate? And the first person who said it, I was like, no, I haven't thought about real estate, and I don't want to think about real estate. And my dad had been in sales and was very successful in what he did. And he always told me, he's like, Paul, you should go into sales. You'd be a natural. And I didn't want to. I love my dad, and he, he's a great man, but I didn't seem like he was that happy at what he did sometimes. So I was like, I don't want to be in sales, and I don't want to work for a big company. Those are my two. Anything else is fine.
Right.
But after the third person said, hey, have you thought about real estate? I said, okay, maybe I should look at this. at the time, my father-in-law and my soon-to-be broker, they had gone to high school together. So my father was like, well, go have lunch with them and talk to them and see what you think. And he came away and, explained a lot about it, to me, and told me about, the potential income and earnings if you worked hard. And I
Right.
knew I wasn't afraid to work hard. So, went home and talked to Terra about it and pretty much jumped right in. And I started in 2000, got my license in 2000.
Wow.
And have enjoyed it. It's been a great career.
So a lot of people, when they hear sales, right, or real estate agents, they're probably thinking of like really pushing people or really trying to sell in it for them.
Right.
This is a testament to you and Terra for sure. But like you care about the people, you actually want to see their dream come true.
Right.
That's probably what they saw in you when they come to like sales of like, this is what you're meant to do, is impact people.
Yeah.
Not about the money or whatever.
Right.
But I think that's powerful. And a lot of people don't realize that about sales.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the other thing that attracted me to real estate was it's not a hard sell. Like,
Right.
people need to buy, they need a house to live in. So it's not like I'm having to work really hard to sell them something. I have always viewed my job as to listen to what they need, communicate with them, give them great communication, because again, like, what would I want as a consumer, and just give that to them, but also just, guiding them through the transaction and giving them the best advice possible.
It's
The rest of
stressful.
the rest of it takes care of itself. You don't really have to sell them a house per se. They're going to find the house that they want.
Right.
Or, if you're listing it, same thing. It's just, being there for them, communicating with them, giving them great advice, and the rest takes care of itself.
I think that's applicable to almost everything too.
Yes, it is. Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Do you have, still going back to the military too, maybe looking back now, do you have any advice maybe for active duty or veterans on making a plan before, transitioning out?
I guess I would say, again, find something, it's cliche to say this, but find something you think you can enjoy. Life's too short to be drudging away at something that you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But also be smart about it. Like, make sure that you're looking at career paths that aren't going to be phased out by technology in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And also, think about where you want to, geographically, where you want to be, and what sort of industry there is or jobs there are.
And that's almost changing now too.
It really is. Yeah. So you hear a lot about the STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. So
don't forget the arts, STEAM. No.
Oh, is it STEAM?
STEAM now, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I'm already out of date. But those areas there's going to be demand for a long time. Yeah. So learn a skill. For a lot of people, fortunately, in the military, a lot of their skills, even whether they realize it or not, can translate to the civilian world.
Oh yeah.
So I guess that'd be another big thing is, as long as you enjoy doing what you're doing in the military, look for applications in the civilian world. Sometimes there are gaps in the market where it's not that your skill set isn't even really being used, but there's a gap in the market that it can fill. So yeah.
Civilian life is completely different for sure.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's such a different culture. It's a hard transition for some people. I was only in for 4 years, so it was still interesting process transitioning, especially going from the Marine Corps to college was a pretty big shock to the system.
You're like with children a little bit sometimes too.
Yes,
I haven't seen anything. I have no clue what's happening in the real world.
Yeah, for sure. But the people that have spent 20, 23, 20, or 22, 24 years, that I can't imagine how much of a challenge that would be to transition to civilian life.
Oh yeah. What about like finding companies, to work with that are veteran friendly? Like, you employ veterans yourself. How important is that? Even with culture.
Yeah. So and we've employed several veterans in the past. We're actually at a point where we don't have veterans working for us right now besides myself. But because both of them have gone onwards and upward, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of companies out there that are interested in hiring veterans because they can bring a lot to the table in terms of their skill set, and just some of the basics like showing up on time or early, the stuff that
Early.
just seems like it would be just automatic isn't necessarily automatic. So and the leadership skills, those whole those, a lot of those will translate into the workforce and civilian life.
Oh, 100%.
Punish in private, praise in public, those those basic principles that they teach you.
Absolutely. And respecting leadership and all of that. I just,
Mhm.
yeah, the perspective alone, I'm learning a lot, especially because we're in the firearms industry, right? And military have a whole lot more experience than I do. So
Right.
I'm
Yes.
learning a lot every day.
Yes. Yeah.
So going back to Notch Gear too, do you want to talk about some of the partnerships that you've made with, I know HK is one of them, Wiley
Yeah.
X, like how did those
Yes.
happen?
So HK, do you know JD Williams?
Oh yeah. JD's
Yeah.
good buddy. I love him.
Yeah. So JD's on HK shooting team, and he sponsored us or we sponsored him rather, like early on in our journey, and he's such an awesome guy.
Yep.
And been a great supporter. And so he made the intro to the apparel guy at HK. And I think they had even heard of us before, which is also like kind of a little bit of a thrill. It's like, wow, that's cool.
Right.
So we did some hats for them, and they liked them, and they reordered, and they've actually added a second style since then.
So cool.
And then Wiley X actually reached out to us, believe it or not, which is really cool.
I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, it's I believe it too. It's just kind of, it's fun, when those things happen, like they found us, we didn't find them. But
Right.
and then we've done, of course, the Army Marksmanship Unit was a cool one.
Yeah.
We've done some, not directly, but through one of our wholesale partners. We've done some hats for Cummins Diesel, which is pretty cool. Like a lot of like not little, but a lot of big companies actually, but so far still on a relatively small scale, but it still just helps us, get that recognition and sort of legitimizes the brand.
Right.
And there's a couple that we're really excited about. We can't say who they are yet, but
Coming soon.
they're bigger than ones we've done before. And so we're super excited about those, and obviously looking for more opportunities to co-brand and partner with other brands, and we have a licensing deal in the works. So that whole going back to where we talked about wanting to license,
where you wanted to be.
Yeah. So that one is fully executed and in the works. And again, I can't say who it is, but most people in your community would know who they are.
That's neat. Okay.
So that's fun. Yeah.
So okay, JD, had you ever met him in person before sponsoring him?
No, I hadn't met him in person. It was just through social media. And then
me too, because I was wondering, like, companies that make these connections, it's the power of social media for sure. But like, how have those ambassadors or sponsored tutors like helped you grow as well?
A lot through their content and just their followers. We'll get orders from people and they'll say, hey, I saw so and so wearing your hat, and you've been an awesome supporter, by the way. Let me just say that you've been so consistent. We really appreciate that, and your content's great.
Thank you.
So people see that, and it helps spread the word, and then that person, someone else they know, like, where'd you get that hat? And they want it. So it has this ripple effect.
Absolutely.
But so that's a big one. And then like with JD, making that intro to a big brand like HK was really kind of him and so valuable for us. So anytime JD needs anything, JD gets what he needs.
Oh man. And you guys went to SHOT Show. Was that your first ever, second ever? What number SHOT Show?
That was our second. We were on the waiting list for like 4 years for a booth. And what's funny about that, also let me back up. So yeah, I met JD for the first time at SHOT Show, the same show I met that we met face to face.
Okay. 2020.
And it was great seeing you in the booth, and looking forward to seeing you in the booth. Are you going this year?
I hope so. I have an energy level that I can't contain. I know that.
Okay, cool. But well, we'd love to see you if you're coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so we were on the waiting list for like 4 years, and one day I get a call from someone at SHOT Show, and they're like, hey, we're going to take you off the waiting list if you don't do something. And I'm like, well,
What?
how can I don't even, what are you talking about? I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, what category are you in? Or she told me what category we were in. I was like, no, that's not the correct category. We're this category. And she's like, oh, well, let me switch you over. And like within days, we got the invite
Yes.
to purchase a booth. So it's the timing just working out
Yeah.
in that case. But so we our first one was in 2019.
Mhm. How impactful is SHOT Show for companies like yours?
It's been very impactful and successful for us. It's really gratifying, again, where you see people walk on the show floor that have your hat on and they're customers, and you've never met them and they've never met you, and they're really excited that you're there and you're really excited that they're there.
Yep.
And so, making those connections has been good. But also just getting on the radar for larger brands. Like we've had some extraordinarily large brands like stop by the booth and talk to you, and that's really cool. But I think the biggest thing so far is we've picked up a lot of overseas accounts
Oh, neat.
with SHOT Show. We had some before, but a lot of the Asian countries like South Korea, Thailand, Japan, some European countries, because in a
Incredible.
lot of those countries, gun ownership isn't legal.
Right.
So for them, the next best thing is milsim or airsoft. And
Cool.
so they like to gear up and do the whole thing just like we do. And so that's been a growing market for us for sure. And every time we've gone to SHOT, we've added overseas dealers that continue to reorder in bigger numbers.
So neat. And for those listening, we're doing a little bit of airsoft nowadays with the ammo shortage. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, do you know Rick Hogg from Warhog
I don't.
Tactical? Yeah, he's a former special forces guy, really nice guy. Him and Mark Kelly with Kelly Defense are really awesome guys, both supporters of us. And Rick's done some cool videos on training, just drills with airsoft.
Cool.
It's very practical
Oh, yeah.
and inexpensive, and it has carryover to to an actual firearm. So yeah,
100%.
there's some people make fun of it or whatever, but what's crazy is people, some of these airsoft rifles are $2,000, $3,000.
Expensive.
Yeah.
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 And it's better than dry fire because
Exactly
nobody
right.
loves dry fire.
That's right. Yeah. It's a huge industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so wrapping up this episode, I do want to talk a little bit, since we have a little bit of time, about working with your spouse. So
Mm.
what is it like, working all day together, coming
Mhm.
home together? Are there like non-negotiables or rules that you guys have had to, put in when it comes to business?
Not really. I mean, that'd probably be smart to do that. We haven't done it. I mean, after 27 years, we sort of have our dynamic in place. Do you know what I mean? As a couple. And we don't have a perfect marriage. We have a good marriage and we love each other. And so it does present a unique set of challenges because it introduces a different dynamic into the marriage.
Right.
But Terra has been invaluable in the growth of Notch, and just like even just the simple things about how things look around here, they would look way worse if it was just me. So and she's definitely a driver. Like she'll, if there's a project that needs to get done, she's the one that drives to make sure that it gets done. So she brings a whole totally different set of skills than I bring, that's a huge compliment to it. So
Awesome.
so we end up, we talk about it at the dinner table. We wake up and we talk about it. We talk about it when we're going to bed, and the kids are like, oh, please, not Notch. Don't talk about anything but Notch, please. So
I'm guilty. I love my mother, but she's a florist and she'd come home, talk about flowers, and I was the flower
yes.
delivery girl. And then my dad's like, can we not talk about flowers?
Yeah, but it's it's like part of you. It spills
It is.
over into everything, really. So it's hard not to. And but we do take time. Every once in a while, we'll take time, like whether it's a vacation or a couple days away, and just try not to work and try not to talk about it as much as we can, because that's healthy too.
Yeah.
To have some downtime.
Absolutely. And raising your kids around entrepreneurship, I was going to touch on that too. I learned from both my parents. My dad was an entrepreneur on the side hustle. Mom was an entrepreneur, finally made it out of the part-time job or side hustle to real life.
Nice.
What's that like raising kids around entrepreneurship? What do you want them to learn?
I mean, we hope they've seen that like their only limitations are self-imposed. Like you can really do just about anything you want to. And so, we hope they've seen hard work, good work ethic and creativity and also compassion, wanting to make a difference.
Yep.
So you hope they pick those things up. Sometimes, we know that they have. So in some case, like some of those instances, it's made an impact. And I think that'll only grow as they get older and mature, because they're 20 and 17
Yeah.
now. But it's been cool. They've gotten to have a lot of cool experiences. Like we've sponsored NASCAR drivers, and we went to a race on the truck series, a really awesome guy named Timothy Peters, and it was at the Phoenix International Raceway, first NASCAR race we had ever been to. We're sitting there on the owner's box, like right at the pits, and Timothy wins the race that night. So we end up in winner's circle, on Fox Sports 1 with him, and I'm like, who gets to do this kind of stuff? It was awesome. And then they got to go out to New York City with us when we were on Fox and Friends. So there've been a lot of like little cool things that they've seen. We took our oldest on a trip to Tokyo for his high school graduation, and got to visit a couple of stores there in Tokyo that carry the hats, and so they get to see like the far-reaching effects of what we've done.
So you don't want to adopt a 28-year-old, do you?
And yeah, we're all full up. We're all full up.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Have they swept floors or packed boxes or done any of that?
Yeah, they have. They both have worked. Actually, they both still currently work for the business on sort of like a part-time basis. So our youngest, he every week he goes around to the stores in town and merchandises the displays, make sure that they're clean and stocked, and then our oldest has done quite a bit of tech packing for us. So when you design or develop a new style, you do renderings first, and those are called tech packs. So he's both of them are really, I mean, every parent says this, so it's kind of embarrassing, but both really smart kids, all A's and whatever. But he's doing learning software engineering with an emphasis in game design is what he wants to do.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So he's really good with computers and has done a lot of cool design stuff for us. So it's fun, they get to have their hands on a little bit still.
Yeah. Oh, and you need to put in that sweat equity.
Yeah. But they both want to do their own thing. I don't think they want to, haven't expressed any interest in coming in and working for us long term, which is fine. Like it's,
I mean, would I be a good florist?
Right.
So I get it.
Yeah. Guns and flowers. I don't know.
No, not quite there yet. So I gotta ask, what's your favorite Notch Gear hat?
My favorite is definitely the adjustable 10 operator, which was the very first operator we did. Okay. To me, I don't know, they're all great. And it used to be another one, but now it's my 10 operator. It's just really comfortable. It's really dirty and kind of ratty at this point, but
like what true hat owners love.
Exactly. It's like broken in. And what's funny about the 10 operator is for most, like I think all the ones you have, we do a Velcro strap with the hair safe Velcro on the back.
Yes.
For the closure. Yeah. The 10 operator, I don't think you have one, but it's the only one we did with a metal slide adjustment. So
still has that.
So no, it's different than that.
Okay.
It's different than that. But similar. So and it's one of those kind of quirky things, like we've just never changed it over and made it the same as all of the other adjustable operators. So I don't know, it's got a special place in my heart because it's the first operator that we did.
Yeah, you got to have a favorite.
Right.
So wrapping all this up, what's been, I guess, the most rewarding thing about Notch Gear?
I think the most rewarding thing is just watching it grow, being able to, provide a place for people to work and, provide a good work environment has been really rewarding. But just watching it grow and seeing, I think one of the most rewarding things besides our partnership with Children's Hunger Fund is when we get contacted by a brand that I know and have respect for, that's like, wow, it's such an honor, and it's really cool. And like going back to JD, he's also sponsored by Oakley Standard Issue. And so I've been an Oakley fan for years, and I've worn exclusively Oakley with, I think, one exception for the last 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And JD did a post like a year and a half ago and tagged both of us. And then Oakley Standard Issue did a post and tagged us.
Oh, wow.
And it was like that moment when, the brand that you basically like look up to recognizes you as another brand is pretty special.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Looking back, did you ever imagine this would be where you're at right now?
No. Sometimes we lose sight of it. It's like sometimes you forget to sit back and appreciate how far you've come, because in my mind, we still have so far to go.
Right.
But when, like, my wife's sister's in town right now, she came by Notch, and we showed her around earlier this week, and she was like, just kept oohing and ahhing about how amazing it was. And it's like you kind of forget to appreciate like how far we have come. So yeah, still a long way to go. I don't have any illusions about how big we are, but I am excited about where we are, and I'm excited about where we're going.
Absolutely. I think a lot of shooters can relate to when we talk about when we're at matches. Oh, Jerry was there, and they're like, Jerry Mitchell, Lena was there, what? Or like these big pro shooters, and like for us, that's normal, especially when we go to SHOT Show and we see all those big names. And then you're like, oh, I have to forget that I once was that. I still am probably that giddy little person, so excited to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
People.
It's like, yeah. And everybody starts somewhere. Nobody, everybody starts at zero, unless you're some big group with tons of investors and you can start at 60. Everybody starts at zero.
Absolutely. So how do people find your store online and on social media?
So we're notchgear.com is our website, and we have all of our hats available there. And on social media, we're also Notch Gear. So we're at Notch Gear on Instagram and Notch Gear on Facebook. And you can find us there and connect with us. We'd love to talk with you, chat with you, and sell you a few hats.
Love it. Anything else you want to leave the people with, Paul?
Kenzie, we just appreciate you having me on, and it was a lot of fun. It was great getting to talk to you and chat with you again. First time we've actually connected this way, and first time I think we've talked like seeing each other since SHOT Show. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is good. Thank you so much for being on here, and hopefully this inspired some entrepreneurs out there. So if you're listening, stay tuned next week. Paul, thanks again.
Thanks, Kenzie.
Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.